Software Bill of Materials. What is a software bill of materials, or frequently referred to as SBOM? Well, we talked about before in the product that 85 to 90% of the software that you produce is made up of false dependencies from open source software. Well, what software bill of materials is a list of ingredients. Those components, those library, whether it's proprietary or open source, whether it's free or paid, everything from even down to a tooling, environmental information, settings, versioning, whatever it is, it's all the key ingredients to make up the software you create. And what it's used for is for regulations in most places. On May 21st, 2020, the Biden administration enacted the ability for companies to work with the government to say that you need to provide a software bill of materials so they know what's safe and secure and what components were used to build that software. And the software that is produced when you have the SBOM, it allows companies to go through, and initially, like I said, it started with the U.S. government as part of the regulation. If you wanted to work with them, they wanted to know what was inside. It was in response to SolarWinds, which affected the U.S. government drastically. But also, too, in some cases, it's utilized as a way for companies to negotiate, talk to a company when they're acquiring their software. It's also a place where people can go through and look at the software bill of materials, look at the components that are in it, and also use that as a way to determine whether or not the software they're using contains any potential threats, vulnerabilities, or other nefarious means. And the benefits of the SBOM is that you have a constant catalog of the components that make up the software path. It also allows you to manage the licenses, because one of the key aspects of a software bill of materials is not only the version and what the actual library it is, but the licensing behind it. And in some cases, that's used for compliance, and especially when it comes to legal. It also allows companies to go in and look at the quantifiable risk that a potential package might provide, or actually in this case, might actually hurt a company when they're looking at that company. It also starts to reduce operational costs for unplanned and unscheduled work, because you can go in and look at the software that's being utilized, see the components of it, and you have direct access to every single dependency that's part of it. And like I said before, also things like environmental information, potential environments that are there, settings, things like. There are two types of format. There are SPDX and CycloneDX. There are other formats too. SPDX is the oldest. It's actually one of the ones that's actually used for software development purposes. It's actually primarily designed as a way to gather licensing information around open source packages. A newer format, such as CycloneDX, is used by most industries these days. It actually contains more information, much more detailed information as part of it, and it also lists the tools that are also as part of it too, so that when companies are looking at the software you provide them, they have a more detailed analysis of what makes up that software. There are a bunch of required fields in this, and when you look at the formats, they do have supplier name, the component name, the version of the component, other unique identifiers that might be associated to that component. Also, dependency relationships. That actually is more aligned to the CycloneDX format, the author of the SBOM data, and of course, a timestamp on when it was created. Now, the thing is that there are a lot of misconceptions about providing an SBOM to a potential customer. One of them is that the attacker is going to be able to go and look at the roadmap of the actual software component and possibly anticipate the pieces in there and how they can actually poison the supply that is part of the software, third-party transit dependency. It doesn't require or does not contain any sort of source code. It is not the reason for it. It is actually simply a map of the dependency values that are used to actually go ahead and the software. And it also does not include any sort of information about intellectual property. So these are just some misconceptions that people have. It is actually completely safe to use the SBOM as a way to have attribution. And most of the times, like I said, legal teams will do it. If you deal with the U.S. government or most governments these days, you do definitely need to go ahead and provide that software bill of materials. In addition to that, a lot of other regulated industries, Yandex, medical, you name it, have also adopted this methodology. So when they receive any sort of software, they have a way to go in and look at it in much more detailed information other than just face value. Inside of Artifactory, it's very easy to do. We talked about build information. When you create a build and you publish this into Artifactory. And if you're using our X-Ray product, one of the nice features is that any build that you go ahead and you publish into Artifactory and X-Ray has a view into it, you can go in and simply export the SPDX and CycloneDX formats. It's extremely easy. We made it as simple as possible for companies to go in with as minimal effort as possible to produce a software bill of materials that they can provide to their clients. Thank you.